September 1985. An envelope arrives at the office of the chief prosecutor of Florence, Italy. Inside is a small package. Inside the package is a piece of human flesh. It has been cut from a woman named Nadine Moriot, a French tourist who was murdered in the hills outside Florence 8 days earlier. She was 25 years old. The killer kept a piece of her and then mailed it to the prosecutor with a note. "Illustrious doctor, I send you a little gift as a token of esteem for the excellent work you are doing in the name of the law." He had been killing for 11 years. The police had investigated thousands of suspects, and this is what he thought of their efforts. This is the story of Il Mostro di Firenze, the monster of Florence. The most hunted man in Italian history, and the one the Italian state never caught. Florence, 1974. The hills surrounding Florence are some of the most beautiful in the world. Vineyards and olive groves, narrow roads through cypress trees. In the summers of the 1970s, young couples drove up into those hills at night for privacy, parked along the quiet roads, and believed they were safe. They were not safe. The killings began in 1974. A couple found shot dead in their parked car in the countryside south of Florence. Then again in 1975, in 1981, twice in 1982, once in 1983, once in 1984, and then the last time in September 1985. 8 attacks, 16 victims, always couples, always at night, always in the hills outside Florence. The weapon was always the same, a .22 caliber Beretta pistol with a distinctive defect in the barrel, leaving a mark on every bullet casing that investigators could identify. The same gun from 1974 to 1985. This was one person, one killer who had been operating in the same hunting ground for over a decade. The Italian press named him Il Mostro, the monster, and the name spread across Europe. Florence, the city of Michelangelo and Leonardo, of the Uffizi and the Duomo, became associated with something entirely different, something that hid in the dark hills and waited. The pattern. The monster chose his targets carefully. He always targeted couples, not individuals, couples. That choice is worth examining. 2 people in a car means neither can run for help while the other is under attack. And the male victim was almost always killed first. The physical threat eliminated before anything else. This was not random selection. This was tactical thinking applied to murder. He operated on nights with no moon, when the countryside was completely dark. Moonless nights do not happen by accident. He planned around the lunar calendar, or at minimum, was aware of it. He waited for the right conditions before he moved. He approached the parked cars on foot, in silence. He fired through the windows. And then, in most cases, he stayed. He did not flee immediately. He spent time with the bodies. He was not afraid of being discovered. He felt safe enough to linger. The post-mortem mutilation of the female victims told investigators something important. This was not only about killing. This was organized. This required preparation and a certain kind of calm. The investigator heading the case, Ruggero Perugini, understood that he was dealing with someone who had no fear of being caught, someone who believed he was untouchable. He was right. The letter. The 1985 package was not the monster's first communication with authorities, but it was the most direct. After killing Nadine Moriot and Jean-Michel Kravitchvili in a vineyard outside Florence, the monster had taken a trophy. He brought it home. He packaged it carefully. He wrote a note. Then he mailed it. Chief Prosecutor Silvia Della Monica received the package at her office. The note inside taunted her directly. It complimented her work. It was signed, in effect, by the crime itself. Notice what the killer did not do. He did not send it to the police. He did not send it to the press. He sent it to the chief prosecutor specifically, the person at the top of the command chain. That choice tells us something. He had researched who was leading the investigation. He knew her name. He knew her office. He had done this after committing murder, calmly, and decided to make it personal. This was not a disorganized killer acting on impulse. This was someone who considered the investigation itself part of the confrontation, who studied his opponent the way his opponent was trying to study him, and who wanted her to know that he had been watching all along. The investigation had been running for over a decade, and the killer had just written a note to say hello. The hunt. In the early 1990s, the investigation finally found its focus. A man named Pietro Pacciani came to the attention of investigators. Pacciani was a farmhand from the Florentine countryside. He had a violent past. In 1951, he had murdered a traveling salesman he found with his girlfriend, then mutilated the body. He had served 13 years in prison. He was known for a brutal temper and a complete absence of remorse. He lived in the hills where the monster had operated. He matched the profile. Investigators found disturbing material during searches of his property. In 1994, after a lengthy trial, Pietro Pacciani was convicted of 7 of the 8 double murders. Italy exhaled. The monster had been caught. Except he had not. In 1996, the Court of Appeal overturned the conviction. The evidence was insufficient. Pacciani walked free. 2 years later, in 1998, he was found dead in his home. He was 71 years old. The cause of death was heart failure. He died before a retrial could take place. The verdict against him was never reinstated. Officially, the identity of the monster of Florence remains unknown. The Spiral. 2 men, Mario Vanni and Giancarlo Lotti, were convicted as accomplices in several of the murders. The prosecution called them the Compagni di Merende, the picnic companions, men who had participated alongside the main killer in some way. But if Pacciani had been the killer and was now dead, what exactly had they accompanied? And if Pacciani was innocent, who had they actually helped? A new prosecutor entered the case. Giuliano Mignini developed a theory. The murders had not been committed by a lone farmhand. They had been orchestrated by a secret group. Powerful men, perhaps doctors, perhaps members of a satanic sect, who had ordered the killings to obtain body parts for occult rituals. The investigation expanded into something that bore little resemblance to a murder inquiry. An American author named Douglas Preston, who was writing a book about the monster with Italian journalist Mario Spezzi, found himself in the middle of it. Spezzi was arrested in 2006 on charges related to the investigation. Preston was summoned for interrogation by Mignini and told to leave Italy. The journalist covering the case had become a suspect. The investigation that had begun 30 years earlier, trying to catch a killer in the hills, had consumed careers, destroyed reputations, and reached into journalism and literature and international diplomacy. And the monster, whoever he was, had not been caught. He had done something almost impossible to comprehend. He had not merely evaded the police, he had broken the system. The monster of Florence is still officially an open case. Pietro Pacciani is dead. Vanni and Lotti served their sentences. Mignini was later convicted of abuse of office in connection with a separate investigation. Douglas Preston eventually published his book. Mario Spezzi was eventually cleared. 16 people died in the hills outside Florence between 1974 and 1985. Most were young. Most were simply unlucky enough to park their car in the wrong place on the wrong night. The same gun was used in all 8 attacks and was never recovered. The letter, sent to the prosecutor in 1985, is still in an evidence archive somewhere in Florence. There is one more detail that has never been fully explained. The killings stopped in 1985. After the package was sent to the prosecutor, there were no more attacks, not one. The investigation continued for decades. The newspapers kept writing about him. The police kept looking, and he simply stopped. There are 2 ways to read this. One is that something changed in his life, that circumstances forced him to stop. The other is that he chose to. That the letter to the prosecutor was not just a taunt, but a closing statement. That he had decided, on his own terms, that he was finished. And that walking away undetected was the final move in a confrontation he had been winning all along. The monster of Florence calculated, correctly, that he could kill for over a decade, taunt the prosecutor by mail, and walk away untouched. Not because he was brilliant, but because the system that was supposed to catch him turned on itself before it could reach him. He did not just escape justice. He made justice look away. Did he get away with it? Leave your answer in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe, because there are plenty more where this came from.